And I want to bring in former CIA officer and FBI special agent, as well as NewsNation security contributor Tracy Walder. Tracy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about these alleged confessions Richard Allen made to his wife on April 3rd. Now, this was around the same time that his attorney said that he began showing both a mental and a physical decline, eating paper, allegedly, his lawyer said. Now, days later, prison officials said that his behavior began to return to normal. Do you think his lawyers are setting the stage for an insanity defense, or what do you make of this complex picture?
Personally, yes, but that's just my own personal opinion. I do think that they're trying to set the stage for an insanity defense. Look, he may be being mistreated in prison. I mean, that is something that would need to be investigated. If that behavior is true, that has been reported about him eating paper, losing a lot of weight, not sleeping, not eating, those kinds of things, then yeah, that could pave the way for an insanity defense, and then might make that admission that he made, that confession that he made several times throughout that phone call, really up for grabs, if you will. It might not make it as much of a slam dunk case that we may think it is.
Do you think that the confession that was made to both his wife and his mother, does that hold up more in court than, say, if the confession came from an inmate informant? How does that differ?
That's actually an excellent question, Natasha. As an FBI agent, sometimes it's really hard when you have someone confess to an inmate. I've worked cases before where the inmate they've confessed to is questionable, and then they're put on the stand and they're torn apart. And that becomes problematic. So a confession like this is actually, hate to use the word great, but it's a great thing, for law enforcement and for the prosecution, and that this is to his mom, this is to his wife. These are not necessarily inmates who are looking to barter plea deals and those kinds of things, or maybe in there for questionable life choices. And so that is a good confession, if you will, from a prosecution standpoint.
Okay, I want to talk about timeline here, because we also learned that Allen was first interviewed by a DNR officer just days after the murders took place, admitting that he was on the trail that day. And then nothing happened until late 2022. Why do you think this interview went nowhere for so many years?
I personally believe the interview went nowhere because of the shell casing. I'm not certain that they had enough information really to get a warrant to search his house to find the gun that matched that shell casing. And I think that is the thing. There were I don't want to say a lot, but there were people on the trail that day. He could have very well just been one of them. So admitting that he was there isn't necessarily enough to arrest him.
Yeah, I really appreciate that piece of insight. Now, we do know that police interviewed Allen again in October of 2022. They confirmed that Allen had guns and also a Carhartt jacket that was very similar to the one that was worn by the suspect in that bridge guy video that we saw over and over again. Detectives searched his home that same day. Now, his lawyers have argued that that warrant lacked probable cause, and you sort of alluded to that. What is your take on this?
Look, I do think in a weird way, the defense is sort of showing their hand, if you will, right? They're going after the veracity of that warrant by saying that it lacked probable cause. And I do think, I strongly think that they are building sort of that insanity defense. So in a way, they're showing their cards very early on. And so it's allowing the prosecution to probably bolster their case a bit more in areas that may have holes. I don't necessarily think that that was what we would call a bad warrant, because really judges are pretty hesitant to sign off on these things unless you have more than enough evidence. I mean, I've had to work a long time to get evidence to get a warrant. And so I just have a hard time thinking that warrant was bad, as we would say.
We are learning for the first time how investigators believe that the girls were killed. And they're saying they believe a knife was the murder weapon here. What was your reaction when you learned this?
I mean, it's heartbreaking, right? It's heartbreaking to learn what these girls went through. Also, there was information released that things were missing from the crime scene, like underwear. And so I have to wonder if a sexual assault took place in regards to that crime, which is also horrific. And so I think it's my guess that he probably came to that crime scene with a knife and with a gun, and chose the gun and probably lost a shell casing in the struggle. And so it's really horrific to think about what these two young ladies went through.
I completely agree. I think those details in these documents, the items like the socks and as you say, the underwear being missing also really struck me. Tracy Walder, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.